First, though, as part of the BBC's Make It Digital campaign here on Radio 4, Georgina Ferry goes back to the early 19th century to explore the intense inner world of a Victorian technology visionary in the letters of Ada Lovelace.
When steam was still the new big thing, Ada Lovelace anticipated our digital age. It was an extraordinary leap of imagination. No surprise, perhaps, from the daughter of the romantic poet, Lord Byron.
Dearest Mamma, I ought to do greater things than he ever did. But there is less flash about me and much more depth. Therefore I shall be a much longer time about it, and also, in all probability, my reign, if ever I have one, over mankind will be chiefly after my death.
She was right. Each year, Ada Lovelace Day celebrates women in technology, and this year, 200 years after her birth, sees Ada celebrated as never before, hailed as the world's first computer programmer and prophet of the computer age. As a biographer, I've always found Ada the feminist icon pretty unsatisfying, nor am I particularly interested in the inevitable backlash. I want to plunge into her stiflingly conventional 19th century world and hear her own voice, preserved in the archive of her letters in Oxford's Bodleian Library. She's fragile and flawed in many ways, as you might expect given her impossibly romantic father and an impossibly self-righteous and controlling mother. For Ada Lovelace, mathematics and poetry went hand in hand. The focus of her passion and imagination was one of the first thinking machines, the analytical engine designed by Charles Babbage. And she was the first to understand that machines like Babbage's analytical engine might one day apply their mechanical minds to almost anything. In short, she understood the significance of the first computer better than the man who designed it. In the early 19th century, well-brought-up little girls didn't normally study maths beyond basic arithmetic. But Ada's mother hired tutors to drill her daughter in a programme of moral and mathematical study expressly to curb any dangerous poetical tendencies she might have inherited from her father, Lord Byron. Weeks after Ada was born in 1815, her pious, intellectual mother Annabella realised that her marriage was a terrible mistake and fled back to her parents. Byron left England and never saw his daughter again. But oh, those Byron genes! Ada grew into a precocious, imaginative and irrepressibly self-willed little girl. As Lady Byron travelled round the country on visits to friends, letters from the lonely 10-year-old followed.
1st of June, 1826. My dearest Mammy, I've been puzzling hard at a sum on the rule of 3 which I could not do. The question is, if 750 men are allowed 22,500 rations of bread per month, how many rations will a garrison of 1,200 men require? Yours affectionately, Cub, Augusta Ada Byron. My dearest Mummy, I was talking to you about an amusement on your birthday. Perhaps on this occasion you might not object to it. If you would allow me to do it, it would be such a pleasure to me. I simply say this and no more, as I know that do's and praise can do nothing with you.
Throughout her life, Ada referred to herself as a bird, and at the age of 12, she was experimenting with flight.
My dear Mammy, I am flying about famously owing to something I found out about placing my feet when I first set off, and which enables to fly much higher than you ever saw me do. I am going to take the exact pattern of a bird's wing and carefully observe the size of the bird's wing in proportion to its body, and then I am immediately going to set about making a pair of paper wings of exactly the same size as the bird's in proportion to my size. I shall, when we meet, fix them onto my shoulders and show you what my plan for flying is, which I do not think that I could well make you understand by any other means. Goodbye. Your affectionate Pigeon, A. Byron.
5 years later, Ada was considered ready for her first season as a debutante in London society. And this was how she came to meet the man who was to change her life, but not in the way most Debs would imagine. Her mother wrote to a friend,
"Today I'm going to Beulah Spa, and Ada is going to the Queen's Ball. I am better pleased with my destination than she is with hers, though she has some pleasure in expecting to meet Babbage at the palace. We both went to see the thinking machine, for such it seems, last Monday. It raised several numbers to the second and third powers and extracted the root of a quadratic equation. I had but faint glimpses of the principles by which it worked. Babbage said it had given him notions with respect to general laws, which were never before presented to his mind."
The crusty and distinguished mathematician Charles Babbage and the teenage heiress Ada Byron bonded over Babbage's difference engine, which he demonstrated at parties in his elegant London drawing room, along with his intriguing automaton, the Silver Lady.
10th of June 1835. To Miss Byron. I enclose cards for my last 2 parties this season. I hope you intend to patronise the Silver Lady. She is to appear in new dresses and decorations. I have been experimenting with turbans. I suppose perseverance will do much for decorating the out as well as the inside of heads, and perhaps next year I may succeed better. I am, my dear madam, very faithfully yours, C. Babbage.
Charles Babbage showed Ada a paternal interest that she'd never previously known. It wouldn't have been proper for Ada to write to him directly, so she enlisted the help of another new and sympathetic friend, the respected mathematician Mary Somerville.
My dear Mrs. Somerville, if you are going to Babbage's tonight, will you do me so great a favour as to call for me at 10 Wimpole Street and take me there? I'm in a loss for a chaperone, or I should not have taken such a liberty. In great haste, yours ever, A. Byron. 8th of November, 1834. My dear Mrs. Somerville, may I trouble you the next time you see Mr. Babbage to say how exceedingly obliged I am for his unexpected kindness in sending me the plates and account of the machine, which is exactly what I was in want of. I am very busy copying the steam engine paper I carried off from Mr. Babbage's the other day. I hope he is not in want of them, and would have no scruples in claiming them immediately.
My dear Miss Byron, I'm very much delighted to have a cap made by you, and the more so as it shows that we mathematicians can do other things besides studying X's and Y's. What an active and zealous person you are to copy letters on the steam engine. So much steadiness will certainly be rewarded. I shall not forget your message to Mr. Babbage the first time I see him. Believe me, ever truly yours, Mary Somerville.
Mary Somerville helped Ada to pursue her new passion for Babbage's innovative engines. Perhaps, too, she showed her that women could succeed in the male world of mathematics. Lady Byron also shared Ada's interest in Babbage's machine, but her main object was to get Ada married off. At 19, Ada was beautiful, intelligent and rich, a highly eligible prospect. The steady, serious, 30-year-old William Lord King proposed in June 1835. Ada accepted at once, and they set the date for the following month.
My dear Lord King, your letter has been an unexpected happiness to me this morning. Sir George was at Mr. Babbage's last night, and says we, that is, you and I, were well talked of by the philosophers, etc. What a happiness it is to feel towards anyone what I feel towards you, and to feel, too, that it is reciprocal. I do not think that there can be any earthly pleasure equal to that of reposing perfect trust and confidence in another, more especially when that other is to be one's husband. I hope, my dear William, that I shall make you a very affectionate and very conscientious wife. And now, my dearest, goodbye. How annoyed you must be at having so much time taken up in reading my stupid letter. Very affectionately, yours, Ada Byron.
My dear Miss Byron, I look upon such happiness as too excessive to be enjoyed otherwise than in a dream. I am only rescued from this delusion by reflecting upon your own sincerity and sweetness of character. I hasten to leave those solitudes which, beautiful as they are, I never before viewed with so much indifference. So as to be in town again on Sunday morning, and to have found from your own lips that you do not repent of having made me the happiest of the living. Yours with the most devoted affection and respect, King.
My dearest, I have an absolute conviction that it rests on myself alone to fulfil your hopes, and that with the powers kindly bestowed on me by a most merciful Creator, I have the capability of doing so. But have I the requisite perseverance and self-denial? How well I understand your spirits, sometimes too high, sometimes too low. Happily, I think we shall be ballast to one another. And now believe me, most affectionately and devotedly, yours, Ada.
I can enjoy nothing, except the anticipation of that happiness which is to come. I am glad, however, that I came in order to get things forward as much as possible. The thought of this not being ready and proper for you makes me very nervous. Besides, after this little absence, the pleasure of again meeting is intense. Take great care of yourself, your eyes, and everything else that belongs to you. And believe me ever, my dearest love, your affectionate and devoted, Kay.
William genuinely wanted to make Ada happy, and Ada enjoyed the comparative freedom of not having to share a home with her mother. Was she really in love with William? I'm not sure. Lady Byron was certainly highly satisfied with the match, claiming to be almost overcome by her feelings at the wedding.
My dearest Ada, I am as well as usual today. I hope you did not think that my agitation was from feelings of sorrow. On the contrary, gratitude, hope, and affection were the chief causes of my emotion, but I will not dwell upon them now, or I shall relapse. Dear little canary bird, may the new cage be gladdened by your notes. I'm much better for the leeches, but Dr. Scott thinks it necessary to see me again tomorrow.
From the day after their marriage, Lady Byron wrote separate letters to Ada and William, frequently detailing her real or imaginary ailments. In acquiring a son-in-law, she'd gained a lieutenant to continue her obsessive surveillance and control of Ada.
Dear Lord King, I am deeply interested in your happiness, individually as well as in connection with Ada's. What she is, I have carefully avoided telling you, wishing you to judge for yourself. What she is to be depends, I believe, in a great measure upon you. Though not sensible of any great errors in the management of her mind, I feel that at her age and under all the circumstances, you are better qualified than I am to be her guide and guardian. I have resigned that part, therefore, with feelings very different from regret. What a prospect of peace and enjoyment is open to me in my declining years. I do hope to see my dear children at Ockham and to prove myself to both a most affectionate mother.
Lady Byron's rigid educational programme had left Ada with an enduring passion for mathematics. Even though she'd fallen pregnant almost immediately after her marriage, she stuck to her studies and continued to correspond with Mary Somerville and, now that she was respectably married, Charles Babbage.
18th of January, 1836. Dear Mr. Babbage, I have got on delightfully with Lardner's trigonometry, which so far as I have yet gone, I think excellent. I've had quantities of formulae to work out myself, and have destroyed a great deal of paper. Lord King desires to be remembered to you, and we both hope to see you here again before long. 1st of November, 1835. My dear Mrs. Somerville, I now read mathematics every day, and am occupied on trigonometry. So you see that matrimony has by no means lessened my taste for those pursuits, nor my determination to carry them on, although it has necessarily diminished the time I have at command. But I suspect it is no bad thing to be limited in that respect.
My dear Lady King, had your note been easily answered, you should have heard from me long ago. But I have been model hunting, and though aided by Mr. Babbage, I'm sorry to say without success. Pray don't let the circles turn you crazy till we meet, for I am sure I can explain them to your satisfaction viva voce, though I doubt of my talents in that way on paper. I hope you go on as flourishingly as ever. I never saw anyone look so well under existing circumstances as you do, and I think it a good omen for the future. Ever truly yours, Mary Somerville.
My dear Mrs. Somerville, how much I should like to have a mathematical child, and only think what pleasure I should have in teaching it, and how capable I might hope to be, too, by the time it was old enough, for I should not begin, I think, the first year.
Ada's first child was born in May 1836. In honour of her dead father, she named him Byron. 2 more babies followed in quick succession, but motherhood didn't really suit Ada. She found small children a nuisance, she was hypercritical of their appearance and behaviour, and she left them in the care of nurses, governesses and tutors, and her mother. In 1838, William became the Earl of Lovelace, but the new Lady Lovelace was desperate to get back to her studies and went back to her old friend Charles Babbage for help.
Dear Mr. Babbage, I have quite made up my mind to have some instruction next year in town, but the difficulty is to find the man. I have a peculiar way of learning, and I think it must be a peculiar man to teach me successfully. Do not reckon me conceited, for I am sure I am the very last person to think over highly of myself, but I believe I have the power of going just as far as I like in such pursuits, and where there is so very decided a taste, I should almost say passion, as I have for them, I question if there is not always some portion of natural genius even.
29th of November 1839. Dear Lady Lovelace, I make a most ungrateful return for your kind letter. I have lately been even more than usually occupied by the engine. I allowed myself 10 days in Cheshire, and finding this did not suit, I was obliged to go to Brighton for 5 days, which restored me to the calculating state. I think your taste for mathematics is so decided that it ought not to be checked. I have been making inquiry, but cannot find at present anyone at all to recommend to assist you. With best regards to Lord Lovelace, ever very sincerely yours, C. Babbage.
In the end, she didn't need Babbage's help. Ada's own family networks eventually led to Augustus de Morgan, the founding professor of mathematics at London University. She started a course of study with him, mostly by correspondence, that went on for nearly 2 years.
13th of September, 1840. Dear Mr. de Morgan, I am very much obliged by your remarks and additions. I believe I now understand as much of the points in question as I am intended to understand at present. I could wish I went on quicker. That is, I wish a human head, or my head at all events, could take in a great deal more, and a great deal more rapidly than is the case. And if I had made my own head, I would have proportioned its wishes and ambition a little more to its capacity. When I sit down to study, I generally feel as if I could never be tired, as if I could go on forever. I say to myself constantly, now today I will get through so and so. And it is very disappointing to find oneself after an hour or two quite wearied, and having accomplished perhaps 1/20th part of one's intentions. Perhaps not that. Yours, very truly, A.A.L.
My dear Lady Lovelace, festina lente, and above all never estimate progress by the number of pages. You can hardly be a judge of the progress you make, and I should say that it is more likely you progress rapidly upon a point that makes you think for an hour than upon an hour's quick reading, even when you feel satisfied. Peacock's examples will be of more use than any book. As to the functional equation, you must distinguish in algebra questions of quantity from questions of form. For example, given x plus 8 equals 10, required x, is a question of quantity, but given x, an arbitrary variable, required a function of x in which, if the function itself be substituted for x, x shall be the result, is a question of form, independent of value, for it is to be true for all values of x. A functional equation is one which has for its unknown the form proper to satisfy a certain condition. My wife returns today from Highgate. I hope Lord Lovelace and the little people are well. Yours very truly, Ada Morgan.
Dear Mr. De Morgan, I am very much obliged for your long letter. I have, I believe, made some little progress towards the comprehension of the chapter on notation of functions, and I enclose you my demonstration of one of the exercises at the end of it. I do not know when I have been so tantalised by anything, and should be ashamed to say how much time I have spent on it, in vain. These functional equations are complete will-o'-the-wisp to me. The moment I fancy I've really at last got hold of something tangible and substantial, it all recedes further and further and vanishes again into thin air.
My dear Lady Lovelace, I can soon put you out of your misery about page 206. You've shown correctly that function of x plus y equals function of x plus function of y can have no other solution than function of x equals ax. To prove that this can be the only solution would be above you. I think you have got all you were meant to get from the chapter on functions. We shall be happy to see you on Monday evening, and Lord Lovelace too, if he be not afraid of the algebra.
Dear Mr. De Morgan, this is very mathematical weather. When one cannot exercise one's muscles out of doors, one is peculiarly inclined to exercise one's brains indoors. Accordingly, I've been setting vigorously to work again, with much satisfaction. But I am sorry to say that I am sadly obstinate about the term at which convergence begins for the series A, page 231 of Algebra, and which we thought had been made clear by you on Monday evening. Yours, most truly, A. Lovelace.
I think it's pretty clear from the letters that Ada, at the age of 25, was operating at about the level of a bright first-year undergraduate. Her belief in her own genius doesn't really stand up to scrutiny. And as time went on, De Morgan began to worry that Ada was harming herself through overwork. But Lady Byron stuck to her belief that a good, strong dose of mathematics was all she needed.
Dear Mr. De Morgan, I find that you are most likely anxious to prevent Lady L from injuring herself by mathematical study. But I feel apprehensive that this caution may be carried too far. I have at all times observed that she was the better for pursuits of that description, and if she would but attend to her stomach, her brain would be capable even of more than she has ever impressed on it. The consciousness of making progress in science seems to me an essential element in her happiness.
This was just what Ada herself believed. At times, her enthusiasm and sense of her own peculiar destiny could verge on mania, glossed by her relatives as overexcitement. And I think the focus on mathematics did help to keep her grounded. I think she knew there was something darker in her makeup, and her letters to her mother are filled with obsessive self-analysis.
Dearest Mamma, there have been dark clouds, and black, lowering threatenings and tempests. I have now gone through the night of my life, I believe, and I am now approaching the dawn. My sun is rising with a clean, steady and full, rather than dazzlingly brilliant light, and has illuminated all around me. He will, I expect, gradually run his course to his zenith, with the same full, steady, even light. And then, maybe, he will tell me to leave for mankind, in my footsteps, a little of that brightness from beyond, which he has reflected on my head, an indication, a glimpse of that which the great future will unroll. Now all this is highly figurative. Perhaps it is too figurative for you or for anyone. Perhaps it is too glowing, too imaginative, too enthusiastic. But I have been tempted to let out to you a little bit of my world of ideas, plans, hopes, Now I will return to the more immediate. We expect Babbage today, to my great delight, of course. Then I've got my harp again, and I'm beginning to practice it as usual. As for the skating, alas, the weather has been abominable for the ice.
Soon after Ada wrote this letter, her mother revealed the shocking details of Lord Byron's incestuous relationship with his sister. But far from disowning her father, Ada reacted with remarkable courage.
Dearest Mamma, although it is impossible for me to think of my father's memory with feelings of respect or veneration, I believe I have derived from him the flower of his characteristics, and cannot but think on this with pleasure, for his genius and superiority in certain ways were unquestionable. I once told you that I have an ambition to make a compensation to mankind for his misused genius. If he has transmitted to me any of that genius, I would use it to bring out great truths and principles. I think he has bequeathed this task to me.
The truths and principles that interested Ada were mathematical, and the vehicle she chose to carry the family torch into the future was not poetry, but Charles Babbage's steam-powered calculating machine.
My dear Babbage, I am very anxious to talk to you. I will give you a hint on what. It strikes me that at some future time, it might be even within 3 or 4 years, or it might be many years hence, my head may be made by you subservient to some of your purposes and plans. If so, if ever I could be worthy or capable of being used by you, my head will be yours. And it is about this that I wish to speak most seriously to you. You have always been a kind and real and most invaluable friend to me, and I would that I could in any way repay it, though I scarcely dare so exalt myself as to hope, however humbly, that I can ever be intellectually worthy to attempt serving you.
We'll find out how the crusty mathematician Charles Babbage responded to Ada's bold proposal in Part 2 of The Letters of Ada Lovelace at the same time next week. The letters were presented by Georgina Ferry. Sally Hawkins played Ada Lovelace. Olivia Williams was Lady Byron. Ada's husband William was played by George Watkins, and Anthony Head was Augustus de Morgan and Charles Babbage. The producer was Anna Buckley.